A crowd of tourists stood frozen behind a bamboo barrier, holding their breath and recording a moment that looked like it was about to go terribly wrong. In the center of the clearing stood a 5-ton angry elephant, and standing near his massive hindquarters was this tiny woman. She held a thick cloth in her hand, resting it over her shoulder. Suddenly, she swung it forward in a fast arc toward the giant's flank. The crowd flinched, expecting the massive animal to retaliate. But no one expected what happened next. This woman is Sangduan Chelert, but the world knows her simply as Lek. Born in 1964 in a remote hill tribe village in Thailand, Lek didn't grow up playing with dolls. She grew up surrounded by elephants. In her village, elephants were everywhere. They were the tractors, the heavy lifters, the engines of the economy. To a child's eye, they seemed like part of the family. She watched them haul massive teak logs through the mud by day, then saw her neighbors offer them palm fronds and bananas by firelight. With the innocent arrogance of childhood, she assumed they worked because they wanted to, that they carried the logs out of loyalty. But she was wrong, and she wouldn't discover just how wrong until years later, and thousands of miles from home. Lek possessed a burning intelligence that her small village couldn't contain. She wanted to learn English, to study, to see the West. So at 16, she made a terrifying choice. She packed her meager belongings, said goodbye to the trumpeting calls of the village elephants, and boarded a plane to the United States. The United States felt less like a country and more like a different planet. Fast cars, towering skylines, a language that felt like rocks in her mouth. For a teenage girl used to the quiet rhythm of the mountains, the noise alone should have sent her back home. But it didn't. Lek turned her loneliness into fuel. She studied English deeply and saved every penny. Gradually, the language barrier disappeared, and she began to understand the West, a culture where animals were treated as companions, not machines. With each step, she built a new future. For the first time in her life, Lek felt like she had escaped the jungle. But the jungle wasn't finished with her. A letter from home changed everything. It wasn't about a family loss, it was about the logging industry in Thailand. The Thai government had banned illegal logging, leaving thousands of elephants without work. At first, Lek assumed this was good news. No logging meant no heavy chains, she told herself. However, that was not the case. The owners didn't just let the animals go. They found a new way to squeeze profit out of them. Unemployment for an elephant was just a different kind of suffering. When they could no longer work the fields, they were sold to tourist camps, forced to carry heavy loads all day, or wander the Bangkok streets, starving and swallowing plastic just to stay alive. Lek returned to Thailand, her degree in hand, ready to see the truth with the eyes of an adult. She took a job as a tour guide at a trekking camp, thinking she could improve things from the inside. But standing in the camps, watching tourists smile while the elephants wept, her heart broke. At the camp, Lek learned about a torture method called the crush. She watched in horror as babies were torn from their mothers and shoved into the crush box, a wooden cage so tight the animal could not sit, turn, or lie down. Keepers kept the babies awake for days, starving and beating them until the animals stopped fighting. Lek realized that every elephant she had loved as a child, every gentle giant giving rides to smiling tourists, had gone through this hell. Their obedience wasn't loyalty. It was PTSD. Tourists snapped photos, smiling, completely unaware they were paying for torture, which the keepers called tradition. Hit the like button if you stand against this cruelty. Lek could have gone back to America. She could have used her English fluency to get a high-paying corporate job in Bangkok, but she couldn't unsee the eyes of the crushed. "I cannot turn my back on them," she whispered, standing in the muddy trekking camp. Lek did more than change careers. She took on an industry worth millions of dollars. In 1996, with money scraped together from her family and a heart full of terrified hope, she started small. She rented a patch of land. She rescued 9 elephants. Her vision was radical, a place where elephants weren't chained, beaten, or broken. The local industry laughed at her. They called her crazy. You cannot control a 5-ton killer with love. They will crush you. But while everyone mocked her and predicted her failure, her story was about to reach a global audience. Her fight caught the attention of a film crew from National Geographic. They flew in to document this tiny woman standing against an entire industry. They filmed her tears, her exhaustion, and her love for the animals for a documentary titled Vanishing Giants, narrated by Hollywood star Meg Ryan. It seemed like her big break. But while the cameras were rolling, her personal life was collapsing. Her family, deeply rooted in the traditional trade, viewed her mission not as mercy, but as treason. They had put money into her sanctuary, expecting a return on investment. When Lek refused to use chains or hooks, choosing love over profit, they called it a betrayal. They said she was throwing their money away on sentiment. They didn't just disagree with her, they disowned her. Lek was cast out, an orphan in her own village, labeled a traitor, called a witch. And worse, she was broke. The small sanctuary she had started was falling apart. The landlord wanted his land back. She was facing eviction. She had 9 traumatized elephants on rented dirt and nowhere left to go. She sat in the mud of that tiny rented plot, surrounded by her rescued giants, and wept. "I failed them," she whispered. "I promised them safety, and now I have to send them back to hell." She was ready to give up. Then a shadow fell over her. She looked up to see a man standing in the dirt. An American tourist, she thought. His name was Bert. He looked like just another traveler passing through. "Why are you crying?" he asked. Lek wiped her face, embarrassed. She wanted to tell him to leave, but the desperation spilled out. "I have the elephants," she choked out, "but I have no land. The landlord is kicking us out. If we don't move, they go back to the chains." She expected him to offer a tissue, maybe a few dollars, out of pity. Instead, Bert looked at the 9 elephants standing quietly in the field, then at the mountains in the distance. He pointed to a valley far beyond the fence. "That land over there?" he asked. "Is that good land for elephants?" Lek nodded, confused. "It is perfect, but it is a dream. We have no money." Bert didn't say another word. He reached into his bag and pulled out a checkbook. Right there, standing in the mud, he offered her a future. "Go buy it," he said. Lek stared at the check. It was enough to buy 250 acres of freedom. Lek didn't move. She stood in the mud, reading the number again and again, her fingers trembling so hard the paper shook. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me." Bert offered a tired smile. "I didn't just stumble upon you, Lek. My wife and we've been looking for you for days." He gestured vaguely toward the horizon. "Back in Texas, we caught that National Geographic documentary, Vanishing Giants, the one Meg Ryan narrated. We watched you fighting for these animals while everyone else turned their backs on you." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "My wife, Christine, she turned off the TV and looked at me. She didn't ask. She just said, 'We have to go find her, before it's too late.'" He looked down at his muddy boots. "We got on a plane the next morning. We've been asking around the villages for the elephant lady ever since." Lek's eyes filled with tears. "You came all the way from America for us?" "For them," Bert said, nodding at the elephants, "and for what you're trying to do." Within weeks, the land was purchased. The valley that had been a dream became real dirt under Lek's feet. She walked the 250 acres with her 9 elephants following behind her, and for the first time since the family betrayal, she allowed herself to believe. In 2003, the Elephant Nature Park was officially born. The gates opened, and the victims of the industry began to flood in. The work was grueling. Caring for them meant more than food. It meant nursing infected wounds, draining abscesses, managing chronic pain, sleeping in the mud next to a dying animal so it wouldn't be alone. Slowly, the sanctuary grew from 1 acre to a valley, from 9 elephants to 37. However, the physical wounds were easy compared to the psychological ones. And this brings us back to the clearing. The elephant standing before Lek was not a pet. He was a rescue. For decades, all he had known was chains and hooks. To an elephant, the human hand means agony. It holds the hook and wields the bamboo stick with the nail at the end. On this humid afternoon, the tourists at the fence were whispering. Rumors had followed Lek. Skeptics claimed her love method was a scam, that she must secretly beat them to keep them docile. "Watch," a cynical tourist whispered, pointing his camera. "She's going to hit him. That's how she controls him." Lek stood by the elephant's flank. The heat was oppressive. Flies buzzed around the giant's tail and eyes, biting at his scars. The elephant flapped his ears against his neck. Lek raised the cloth high, building momentum. The crowd flinched. Camera shutters clicked, waiting to capture the abuse. But the blow never landed. She struck the air. With a rhythmic, swooshing motion, she fanned the biting flies from his sores, swinging the cloth with the precision of a conductor. However, that was just the beginning. She began to sing. A melodic hum from her childhood. The elephant's reaction was instant. He didn't pull away or charge. The massive, leathery tension in his body simply evaporated. His ears stopped flapping. His trunk, a muscle capable of uprooting trees, lowered until it rested softly in the dirt. His eyelids, heavy with exhaustion, began to droop. The 5-ton mountain of muscle buckled his knees. He wasn't falling. He was lying down. In the wild, elephants rarely lie down completely unless they feel entirely safe. In captivity, they almost never do. For a rescue elephant to expose his belly is nearly unheard of. Lek moved closer, still swinging the cloth to keep the flies at bay. She knelt beside his massive head, her face inches from a tusk that could impale her. She continued to sing. The crowd at the fence went silent. The cynicism died in their throats. Then a sound cut through the silence. It wasn't a trumpet, it was a deep, rolling snore. The elephant was asleep. For the first time in his life, perhaps, the dreams weren't about the hook or the crush box. He dreamed in the safety of a protector who asked nothing of him but his comfort. A tired smile crossed Lek's face. She reached out and touched his trunk, stroking the rough skin. The tourists realized they were witnessing something rarer than magic or any secret trick. It was radical trust. For 50 years, this animal had known humans only as masters. Lek showed him something else. A mother. Please share this video to help spread Lek's message of love. The video of Lek and her elephants went viral. Millions watched as this tiny woman commanded giants not with spikes, but with songs. However, the viral fame brought a new kind of danger. The more famous Lek became, the more the traditional elephant camps hated her. She was proving their business model was a lie. They claimed they needed hooks to keep tourists safe. Lek proved that safety came from respect, not domination. She was disrupting an economy built on pain. But the momentum was unstoppable. Volunteers flocked to Chiang Mai from around the world. Lawyers, vets, students, engineers. They didn't come to ride elephants. They came with cameras and donations. They filmed the truth, shared it with millions, and helped fund the expansion. They turned a small sanctuary into a global movement that the tourism industry could no longer ignore. Lek's philosophy began to reshape the industry. Other camps, realizing that tourists now wanted ethical interactions, began to drop their hooks. Lek Chailert didn't just save the 37 elephants in her park, she saved the thousands that would come after them, and she changed the global consciousness of what an elephant is. Today, Elephant Nature Park is home to over 100 elephants. Lek is older now. Her hair is grayer, her face lined with the stress of 1,000 rescue missions. But she is still there, out in the mud, every single day. When asked why she does it, why she risks her life, why she gave up a comfortable future to be the mother of giants, she points to the sleeping elephant. An elephant never forgets, she says. They remember every beating and every hook. She pauses, looking at the giant snoring at her feet. But they also remember the first time a hand touched them without hurting. They remember the love, and if they can forgive us after everything we have done to them, how can I not dedicate my life to them? Lek raises her cloth one last time. The flies scatter. The elephant sighs in his deep sleep, chasing dreams in a jungle that has no fences. He can never get those years of torture back. But as he sleeps in the shadow of the woman who saved him, one thing is certain. He is finally safe, and he will never fear a human hand again. The story of Lek Chailert is ongoing. The fight against animal cruelty is far from over, but every shared story, every conscious tourist, and every voice raised helps break the chains. If this story touched you, please share it. The story is based on the real life and work of Sang Duyen Lek Chailert, founder of Elephant Nature Park in Chiang Mai, Thailand. The sanctuary, the elephants, and Lek's methods are documented fact. Certain details have been dramatized for storytelling purposes.